Hello everybody. I'm Jordan Roth, the director of Ro2 Art, and I want to thank all of you for being here today for Laura J. Lawson's artist talk for Jovian, excuse me,
Hard J.
Jovian Resonance, and that was weird.
That's all right.
This is a fantastic show. She's been working on it for quite some time, and it's a labor of love for her. So we're really thrilled to have the show here at the gallery, and thrilled to have you here telling the group about the work. So first, I guess, tell me about the title, Jovian Resonance.
Yeah, and thank you all. I'm so happy you're here today. Jovian Resonance. So this is a show about the 95 moons of Jupiter. And so that word Jovian is describing, Jupiter's system. Resonance comes from something that I learned about while I was studying the whole system of the planet and the moons. There are 3 moons in particular. It's the 3 that are kind of around us, Ganymede, Io, and Europa. And they orbit Jupiter in a pattern that's kind of like clockwork. So they essentially align every single month in these little patterns. And because they do that, they have this gravitational effect on each other. Like they pull on each other the way that Jupiter pulls on any one of them. So long story short, because of this gravitational relationship called orbital resonance, these 3 moons are spectacular. They don't act like any other moons in the solar system. Io is volcanically active. Europa probably has an ocean under its ice layer. It's warm enough to have liquid salt water, and Ganymede has a magnetic field. So all of these things are really rare for moons. And I just thought that relationship of how they depend on each other to be that way was really special. So I just could not stop reading about it. I wanted to learn more. I wanted to know everything about every single moon in this whole system. And that's where we get the title.
That is so awesome. This will be a little bit of almost a science science lesson to a certain degree. But because you've engulfed yourself so much in the topic, we do want to hear about this. How did you first kind of become engaged with Jupiter or space in general from your previous work?
Yeah, so space was my first interest ever when I was like a little tiny child. I couldn't get enough of the solar system and the planets, and Jupiter has been my favorite planet since I was like 3. I don't know why, it's just an awesome planet. But how I got into it at this point in my life, it's kind of a chain reaction event. It started when I was in cohort 1 at Cedars Union. I worked with a friend I had been making a bunch of work that was based on maps, and a friend had loaned me some maps of other planets, and I had been making work about Earth. And I just kind of remembered how much I loved space. So I got into another body of work with like inner solar system planets, and then at this point I was like, I want to work on a gas giant. There's no map for Jupiter, it's all gas clouds. So that started the research. I wanted to see, what is Jupiter about? How can I make some art about it? What is there to, pull out and share with everyone else?
Well, and they're beautiful pieces, but they all represent specific moons. And how many moons are there?
As of today, there are 95 moons of Jupiter. When I started this project, there were only 82.
Wow. I was secretly hoping that they would discover 2 more like a few days before the show.
Yeah, I ordered like some extra supplies just in case, but we got lucky. It stayed at 95.
And so we know that you placed these 3 moons together for the reason that they orbit Jupiter in that special way. Can you talk about why Io is represented 4 times?
Yes. So this is one piece about Io in kind of 4 different phases. Io is that moon that's volcanically active. So the color palette and the texture is meant to reflect some of that. But the reason it's volcanically active is because it orbits Jupiter in less than 2 days. It's really fast, and it's being pulled by Jupiter and these other two moons in like really extreme ways. I keep making this gesture. The moon physically stretches and changes shape every 2 days. So it's kind of like the center ones, it's sphere-ish, and then it becomes an ellipsoid and then back. And so when you stretch rock that much, it's going to explode. But because it changes shape and it's moving so fast, the more I read about it, the more I thought it felt like a heartbeat, like a little pulse just kind of fluttering around Jupiter. And so the two panels on the far sides of this polyptych are more kind of shaped like a human heart, to kind of bring that association back.
So, and then the 3 panels across from us are actually representations of Jupiter, correct?
That's right. I didn't make a whole Jupiter. I tried to keep most of the show kind of to scale. It's not perfect scale. But if I were to make a whole piece about Jupiter, it'd be bigger than the gallery. I just don't have the means to do that yet. So just to give the show a little context and to have Jupiter's presence in here, I did little zoomed in close-ups of those storm clouds. So there's 3 different views. You may be more familiar with kind of the reds and oranges of the main like body of Jupiter. That's kind of reflected in the second and third pieces. But as you go toward the poles, there are the molecule that makes Jupiter reddish is called a chromophore, and there's fewer of those at the poles. So the storms at the north and south poles look kind of blue and kind of gray. So that's where that color palette comes from. I'm looking at like different parts of the planet.
So I know that you've done work about Jupiter and Mars and Earth. It's a weird question, but has any of this work informed you more about our planet?
Totally.
In what ways?
So in the first way for me is any study of space, whether it's our solar system or like deep space stuff that we're finding with the new James Webb Space Telescope. Anything that kind of takes my brain off planet makes me think about how kind of silly our problems are. That, you know, we have everything we need right here. All of this stuff is, you know, so strange and so different, and you know, we're going to need all this technology to be able to visit. If we ever send people out there, you know, we need all kinds of heavy-duty spacesuits. Like, the contrast just kind of reminds me that, like, this is it. We've got it made here. This is our place. And how silly is it that we can't just come to a consensus about how to take care of each other? So in that kind of big picture way, I think about Earth when I do space work. But there are kind of practical applications for studying the system. Like Europa is made of ice and salt water, and a lot of the same chemistry that's found here on Earth. And so it's entirely possible that some little creature could be living there in some kind of organic chemistry kind of way. We don't know yet, but for all that I said about how different these places are, they do still have a lot in common in terms of, like, you know, what rocks are there, what substances are there.
So you're working on a catalog for the show that should be available before the end of the show, and you've written some essays for that catalog. Would you like to read one of the essays?
I absolutely would.
Okay.
So because I did so much research into each of these moons, a lot of real scientific information went into making them, even though they have my own kind of interpretive artistic twist on them. I wanted to share that research and the reasons why I was motivated to make the works. So I have very short essays for each of the big Galilean moons. I have an essay for all the little moons as one. We haven't talked about that one yet. I might read that to kind of tell you guys more about the big wall of the little moons. Let's see, here it is. Okay, so this will be available in print by October 14th. All right, so these are the additional Jovian moons. If it orbits a planet, it's a moon. There are no great debates over the official status of S2022's J1's moonhood, even if it's indistinguishable from asteroids. The Galilean moons, the big planet-like Renaissance celebrities, are dazzling and unique. The other 91 moons are cold, dark, rough, and typical. Even though they're not exploding with complex surface features, it doesn't mean they aren't packed with geology worthy of study. Jupiter's extended family of rocky bodies begs for a closer look. The names of these satellites caught my attention first. In the centuries since Galileo spotted 4 pinpricks of light in 1610, a naming convention for the Jovian system slowly evolved. Jupiter, like its fellow solar system planets, bears a Roman name. Its moons are Greek and include lovers, descendants, and other relations of Zeus. To help describe their behavior, names ending in A and O are assigned to moons with prograde orbits, while names ending in E are assigned to retrograde ones. I researched every one of these satellites for information on how to paint them. Very few of them have a decent image to reveal their surface qualities. Many of them were displayed to me in a grainy GIF as a white pixel, each a celestial game of Pong. With so little data to work with, I turned back to the myths. What splendid people I found. Muses, nymphs, goddesses, queens, legends, daughters, mothers, all filled my screen. I made my plan. Each painting would bear a wobbly, unassuming rock shape, flanked by a halo of otherworldly color that could echo the story of their namesake. These are a few examples. Praxiteike, goddess of judicial punishment and the exactor of vengeance. Behind her glossy black moon are blue-silver bursts, raining embers into an inky abyss of purple. Philophrosine, the ancient Greek spirit of welcome, friendliness, and kindness. A nourishing blue-green encircles a shimmering haze of silver light. And Etna, a nymph, the personification of Mount Etna. Rugged terrain in golden earth tones is peppered with exploding ash, which settles on the smooth slope below. While these palettes have little in common with the reality of how they appear in space, they do hold my hopes for what planetary discoveries must feel like. For mere mortals to see what exists millions of kilometers away by catching a fleeting blip on a screen feels like a magic reserved for Mount Olympus. From the greatest observatories to a backyard telescope, the transgenerational persistence of observation and discovery gains us entry to the pantheon of the gods.
It's quite something.
Thank you.
That's terrific. I can't wait to see the book. So let's talk about how you made these objects.
Yeah. So the little ones I described a little bit. They're painted on both sides. The substrate is acrylic, so just hard sheets of see-through plastic. The process of even getting to that point takes a while. I worked with Dalaha Studios and their laser cutter, the CNC, to really precisely cut all of these shapes out of the sheets of plastic. But once I got all that done and assembled them, There is a painting on the front side and a painting on the back side. It's all with acrylics, so the acrylic sticks to the acrylic really well. And the acrylic inks that I use have a really grainy texture to them, so they're great for recreating like a topographical landscape, like a view from above of what a rocky surface might look like. So we have that in all the little ones, and in some of these, particularly Io, because that does have a rocky surface. For some of the other large ones, there are more pieces of acrylic kind of layered on to tell more of that story of what it's about. You know, the ice shell, the magnetic field. But I use different acrylic mediums to kind of make fluids that can act as the background. So the back side of this is painted with acrylic ink and acrylic medium, and then so is the front side. So just kind of changing the textures of the paints will give me different textures on the surface.
And again, you chose the colors often based upon the names.
For the little ones,
For the little ones, yeah.
Those are just to do with their myth. You know, sadly, the moons of Jupiter are not, you know, pink and blue and green. But the bigger ones are a bit more accurate. Io's pretty yellow and a little bit red and brown. Europa is really white from its ice shell, but I wanted it to feel really cold, so I kind of pulled that white closer to blue. But around the corner here, Callisto is probably the most accurate in terms of what the surface looks like, the coloration and the craters.
So this was a really massive and really beautiful undertaking. Where do you go from here?
That's a great question. I do want to keep studying Jupiter and the system. Next year, NASA is launching Europa Clipper, and that spacecraft will arrive at Europa in 7 years. So we'll get all kinds of new data about that moon in 7 years. So maybe I'll revisit the system then when we get that new information. But between now and then, you know, there are other planets I want to look at. I'm really interested in some of the deep space stuff. You know, trying to figure out things like dark matter and how old the universe is. There's just so much wonderful information to dig through that I haven't picked what's next yet, but there's a lot to pick from.
It's really exciting. I don't know of a lot of artists that have delved into this category of science or really, I mean, you have people working on social issues and history, but to have the entire universe as a potential for your future artwork is really, that's quite tremendous.
Thank you.
I don't have any more questions. But is there anything that you'd like to tell us about the exhibition that we haven't covered?
Yeah, there is one little sentimental piece that I like to share about this exhibition. When I was first studying orbital resonance and figuring out what that was, you know, the pattern of the moons kind of moving together, when I first read about that, the way I interpreted it was that these moons are extraordinary because of the company they keep. And like building this show has felt like, you know, making a room full of friends. And I've been thinking about how supportive my community has been to get me to this point, to be able to, you know, make all this work, to show with you, to have the help of so many others, like Dalahast, several different artists have taught me different techniques. This was really kind of a community effort for me. And so I feel extraordinary by the company I keep. And I just like kind of bringing that idea back to my show.
That's really wonderful. I like that a lot. I want to open the floor for questions. If you have a question or a comment, just feel free to raise your hand. Yes?
So Callisto around the corner, it's
That's right.
What does it do? It just
It orbits a little bit further out, so it hasn't fallen in the pattern. What's extraordinary about it is that because it's not dealing with this extreme gravity, it's not resurfacing itself in an extreme way, like Io is being resurfaced with volcanoes, Europa with the ice. Callisto is the oldest surface in the whole solar system. So things just hit it and those impact craters stay. So I titled it The Patient Historian because it's kind of keeping an archive of all of these craters. But I call it the patient historian because it has been modeled and predicted that it will fall in the pattern with the others. We just have to wait 1.5 billion years.
Do you ever see yourself kind of making or depicting any of these like beings like in more 3D space?
Yeah, I do. I don't know how that would look, but I love sculpture and the fact that I'm kind of building these plastic surfaces so that light can pass through and sort of illuminate the painting. I'd like to build them deeper and maybe take them off the wall. So I'm not sure what that'll look like yet, but definitely.
Exciting.
Yeah.
What inspired the catalogs? It's the first time I've heard of it. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I just had to do so much work that I wanted to preserve the show as long as I could. And I feel like a book is something that lives forever. So not only will I have a place for pictures that I can have as an item, but all the essays I wrote, all the research I did will also have a home. So that's why I'm making that.
Any other questions?
Yeah, yes, got one. Kind of just going off the idea of cataloging these things. I know just because we share a wall in the studio that like you had to do like a lot of research for this. You guys kind of touched on that talk, but I was wondering if you could like just kind of elaborate further on like the intersection between like art and research and how that influenced some of the decisions that you made materially.
For sure. Yeah, this was a lot to keep track of. I had spreadsheets to keep track of the pieces. So because the science is kind of what brought me to the idea, it wasn't like I was looking at pictures and saying, oh, this one should be a painting and this one should be a painting. Like I learned about the system and I wanted the whole system to be here. So I like pre-planned in my sketchbook like all these different little moons. I had to research what they looked like. And then I made work from it. It wasn't like, I was doing this kind of self-expressive kind of process of learning through painting. I like really had to kind of build it from the ground up because I wanted all of them together. I wanted the community, right? I kind of started with the idea, then the research, then the planning, then the painting. Did that?
Yes. Thank you.
If there are no more questions, are there any more? Going once, going twice?
And I'll stick around if you want to talk more, but we'll...
Yeah, please look at the exhibition and feel free to talk to Laura. I want to say we're very proud to have this exhibition here. I've learned a lot today, and I've been learning, and I'll learn more as the exhibition continues. It's on view through October 14th. So tell all your friends.
And I should have that catalog ready by the 14th. It'll be here in the gallery for you to pick up if you'd like.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Laura.
Thank you. And thank you for this opportunity. Not every gallery would be okay with just like, yeah, I'll take all 95 and not curate any of them out. Like, you trusted me, and I appreciate that. So thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
All right. Thank you.
Hey.
get the air back on.
Yeah.